Have you noticed how sometimes the least expected players make the biggest noise? Well, the Raiders may have just found one of those surprises. Third-round pick Darian Porter is starting to turn heads, and former Raider linebacker Kirk Morrison didn't hold back when he called Porter's recent performances, "lights out." Now here's what makes this story even more interesting. Back at the start of camp, Porter was listed as a potential starter. But when Week 1 rolled around, he didn't take the field. In fact, he was barely seen in action until just recently. That all changed after Terry McLaurin beat rookie Caillou Kelly for a touchdown. The Raiders pulled Kelly, and in stepped Porter, and let me tell you, since then, things have looked very different. Before I get deeper into the latest updates, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so you never miss breaking Raiders news. Now, let's get back into it. Over the last 2 weeks, Porter has played some serious snaps. He wasn't in the starting lineup again this past game, but when Eric Stokes went down with an injury, Porter stepped in without hesitation. And the results? Impressive. He may not have been tested on every single snap, but the confidence, the positioning, and the way he held his ground stood out immediately. Morrison even doubled down on his praise, saying, "I've seen a lot of players rise up in these moments." Eric Stokes goes down, Porter steps in, and the kid plays lights-out football against the Bears. That's high praise coming from a former Raider who knows exactly what it takes to succeed at this level. So, what's really happening here? Porter has gone from being a quiet depth piece to someone who's suddenly forcing his way into the conversation. And that shift could mean a lot for the Raiders' secondary moving forward. Now fast forward to another moment. The Raiders lined up in a cover 6, which split responsibility between Porter and safety Isaiah Pola-Mao. Watch Porter here, he runs stride for stride with the receiver, backpedaling smoothly without giving up a step of separation. That's textbook coverage. Even if the quarterback wanted to take a shot there, he wouldn't dare. Porter had the receiver locked up. This is what makes his performance so encouraging. It's not about flashy plays every snap. It's about understanding coverages, recognizing keys, and sticking to your assignment, all the little things that keep a defense solid. That's exactly why guys like Patrick Surtain or other elite corners don't always show up in highlights. If you're doing your job right, quarterbacks simply won't test you. And right now, Porter is showing he can be that kind of corner, steady, reliable, and forcing opponents to look elsewhere. Here's the thing about corners, it's not always obvious when they're dominating. With a pass rusher like Max Crosby, you can see it right away, he explodes into the backfield, wrecks a play, and everyone notices. But when a corner is locked in, often, the best sign of success is that nothing happens. No completions, no highlights for the other team, just quiet, consistent work. That's exactly what we're seeing with Darian Porter. Take one play where the Raiders lined up in cover 3. Porter dropped back into his deep zone, read the receiver's break perfectly, and stayed in stride on the dig route. Simple, clean, and absolutely solid. On another snap in cover 4, he again understood his assignment, read the quarterback, tracked the routes, and never allowed separation. That's the kind of detail Kirk Morrison was pointing to when he called Porter lights out. Now, let's be clear, Porter's still developing. If Eric Stokes or Caillou Kelly are healthy, they'll probably get the starting roles. But the value of these reps Porter is stacking up, around 30+ meaningful snaps each game, is huge. It's giving him confidence, sharpening his instincts, and preparing him for a bigger role down the line. By the time next season rolls around, the Raiders might have a much more polished player on their hands. And remember, this defense leans heavily on zone coverages. That requires corners who are disciplined, smart, and quick to process. Porter is showing early signs that he checks those boxes. But while Porter's rise is exciting, there's another story buzzing right now that stirred up a lot of conversation. I came across this one recently, and it involves none other than Chip Kelly, and a comment people believe was aimed directly at Jackson Powers Johnson. Some are saying it exposed why the coaching staff might not be fully on board with JPJ just yet. So, what exactly did Chip Kelly say? Let's break it down. When Chip Kelly was asked about Jackson Powers-Johnson, the response stirred up more conversation than expected. The question was whether you could actually feel JPJ's presence from the booth. Kelly laughed it off, saying he doesn't feel any aura from the press box, joking that if Porter heard that kind of praise, his head might grow even bigger. Still, beneath the humor, there were some interesting takeaways. Kelly admitted he loves JPJ's toughness and physical style. He pointed out that when JPJ was sidelined, the offense definitely lost some of that edge he brings in the trenches. At the same time, he made it clear that physicality is never about one guy alone. Colton Miller sets the tone, Ashton's hard running sets the tone, Trey Tucker's blocking sets the tone. In Kelly's words, it takes all 11 playing with the same edge week after week, not just one star player. Now here's where things get interesting. Some fans have started to wonder if there's more behind these comments. Remember, JPJ was told early on he had to compete with Alex Kappa for the starting role, even though most people believe JPJ is far and away the better interior lineman. That raised eyebrows. Why would a clear upgrade have to win a job that should already be his? Speculation grew that the coaching staff might have some concerns, maybe about his understanding of the playbook, or maybe about how he carries himself. Former lineman Lincoln Kennedy hinted at that possibility. And now, when Kelly jokes about JPJ having a big head, some are questioning whether there's a little truth hiding in that joke. Even Max Crosby has made playful comments about JPJ in the past, suggesting there's a dynamic where the rookie has confidence, maybe even swagger, that the veterans are trying to shape. So the question becomes, is this just a young player still learning how to fit in, or could there actually be tension behind the scenes? Max Crosby once admitted that his relationship with Jackson Powers-Johnson didn't start off perfectly. A year ago, the two weren't exactly on the same page. Crosby is known for being demanding, especially with younger players. Respect has to be earned, and standards in that locker room are sky high. But what's striking is the growth Crosby has seen in JPJ since then. He said if someone told him last year about all the progress JPJ would make by now, he wouldn't have believed it. That's how dramatic the improvement has been. Now, is JPJ confident, maybe even cocky at times? Absolutely. Some people see that in his personality. But that edge comes with something else, a level of passion that you just can't fake. When the Raiders throw an interception, watch JPJ's reaction. He doesn't just jog back to the sideline, he's visibly frustrated, sometimes even angry. That's not arrogance, that's a competitor who feels every single snap. And here's the truth, this guy isn't on the same path as average linemen. He's not just filling a roster spot like some developmental prospect. His tape already screams all-pro potential. Give him another 2 or 3 years of experience, and he could easily be one of the top interior linemen in the NFL, whether it's at guard or center. So maybe some see him as overconfident, maybe even tough to coach at times. But when the bottom line is talent, toughness, and production, JPJ checks every box. If the biggest issue is that he believes in himself too much, that's a problem most teams would gladly take. Because at the end of the day, what stands out isn't the personality questions, it's the fact that this young lineman has the makeup of a future star. It's wild when you think back to the way the conversation around Jackson Powers-Johnson started. After that very first game, when he had a couple of shaky moments, a lot of Raider fans instantly jumped to the conclusion, this guy's a bust. He's not what we thought he was. I can't even count how many people were calling him overrated, saying he was overhyped all offseason. Then came the injury. JPJ missed 2 games, and because he wasn't out there, that negative narrative had time to grow. For weeks, the talk was that he just wasn't a good player. But the truth? That couldn't be further from reality. When he finally got healthy and stepped back onto the field against Chicago, we saw the version of JPJ the Raiders drafted him to be. Clear skies, no slick field, no excuses, and he delivered. His impact jumped off the screen. You could feel the difference in the trenches. And here's the thing, the coaching staff trusted him in key moments. They ran a designed screen to Brock Bowers, and guess who they asked to get out in front and clear the lane? JPJ. That tells you everything about his athleticism and his role in this offense. Plays like that aren't given to guys the team doesn't believe in. The Raiders should keep leaning on him, crack tosses, power pulls, whatever it takes. Let this guy lead the charge, because he's built for it. Now, shifting to the backfield, Chip Kelly confirmed something interesting. He said Ashton Gentry and Raheem Mostert will continue to be the 1-2 punch moving into the Colts game. And honestly, it raises a fair question. Pete Carroll himself even admitted that they always knew Mostert could make plays like this. If that's true, then why was he inactive for the first 3 weeks? Why keep that kind of weapon on the sidelines? It never added up. And the difference between these two backs is clear. Mostert has been doing this for over a decade. He's carried the ball more than 1,000 times in this league. Gentry is talented, but he doesn't have that same level of experience. Against Chicago, once the Raiders leaned on Mostert, the results were obvious: chunk runs of 20, 30 yards, and 4 carries over 60 yards in total. That's not a fluke. That's a veteran back who knows how to punish defenses. The Raiders can't afford to limit him to 1 or 2 snaps here and there. If they want the offense to stay balanced and explosive, they need to commit to giving Mostert real carries. Because when he's rolling, the entire offense opens up. One thing I'd really like to see moving forward is the Raiders finding a way to get both Ashton Gentry and Raheem Mostert on the field at the same time. Imagine the options you could create with that kind of package. Mostert may not be the guy you want picking up blitzes on 3rd down, and that's fine. At this stage of his career, the best way to use him is simple: give him touches, let him run, and let him use his vision to find space. But if you pair him with Gentry, now you can get creative. Slide Gentry into the slot, send him in motion, and suddenly the defense has to account for multiple threats on every snap. Hand it off to Gentry once, fake it the next time, and hit Mostert downhill. Little wrinkles like that could make this backfield much harder to defend, especially heading into a matchup like the Colts. The Raiders have dabbled in 2-back looks already, even lining up Zamir White as a fullback on short yardage plays. But here's the reality: White hasn't shown he can consistently be that guy, and using him as both a running back and a kick returner hasn't exactly made sense either. That's why leaning on Mostert as RB2 is the right move. He's still dangerous, even in limited snaps, and he can give this offense a different gear. And then there's a bit of news that stings: Brock Bowers was a noticeable absence at practice. Heidi Fong reported he wasn't spotted during the media's open session, and the official report later confirmed it: Bowers did not participate. For an offense that needs every playmaker it can get, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. This update is tough to hear. Brock Bowers, who had been practicing in a limited role earlier in the week, was suddenly a no-show today. That raises questions. Is it something small and unrelated, or did that knee flare up again after Wednesday's session? If it's the latter, it could be a sign of a setback, and that would be a serious blow. Bowers isn't just another piece of this offense, he's the most dynamic weapon the Raiders have. There's still a chance this was planned, a rest day to keep him fresh before Friday's practice. But until we know more, the uncertainty lingers, and that's what makes this so concerning. On top of that, Max Crosby also popped up on the injury report with a knee issue. Now, if there's one player who can show up as limited all week and still suit up on Sunday, it's Crosby. We've seen him battle through just about everything. Still, the timing of this is worrisome. When a team starts sliding in the standings, injuries have a way of piling up, and the Raiders can't afford to lose their heartbeat on defense. There is some good news: tight end Michael Mayer, who's been recovering from a concussion, has been back in limited practices. That's a positive sign after missing last week. As for the Colts, they've got some injury news of their own. Wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. suddenly appeared on the report with a hamstring problem, even though he wasn't listed the day before. That's something worth tracking closely. And while linebacker Zaire Franklin remains a major piece of Indy's defense, he's been practicing in full, so no concerns there. And here's an odd note: cornerback Xavier Howard officially retired this week, right before facing the Raiders. Call it timing, coincidence, or maybe he just didn't want to deal with Trey Tucker's speed. Either way, it leaves Indy's secondary a little thinner. Bottom line, the Raiders are already 1-3, and losing key playmakers like Bowers or Crosby would be brutal. For now, the hope is simple: Bowers gets cleared, Mayer stays on track, and this team takes the field close to full strength.